What if everything you have achieved, everything you sacrificed, everything you built, everything you bled for, was never supposed to make you feel whole? What if the emptiness after every win is not a flaw in you, but a message from you? Most people chase their entire lives believing the feeling will come, the peace, the arrival, the moment when everything finally clicks and the restlessness stops. But it never stops because no one ever told them the truth. The mind resets, the goal moves, the hunger stays. You were not born broken. You were handed a script. Perform this, achieve that, be this version of successful. And you ran that script so hard, so long, so faithfully that you forgot to ask whether it was ever yours. But today, right now, I want to ask you something no achievement can answer. Who are you when no one is watching? When there is no applause, no milestone, no next thing to reach for, who are you then? Because that person, quiet, unperformed, unvalidated, that is not your weakness. That is your beginning. Stay with me, because what I am about to share may be the most important thing you hear all year, not because it will push you harder, but because for the first time, it might finally let you stop. What if everything you worked for finally came true and you still woke up feeling hollow? This is the trap most people never see until they are already inside it. The human mind is built with a mechanism called hedonic adaptation, a psychological reset button that returns you to a baseline emotional state no matter what you achieve. You get the promotion, the relationship, the dream body, the car, and within weeks, maybe months, it all becomes invisible to you. Not because you are ungrateful, but because your brain literally stops registering it as significant. You move the finish line, you need the next thing. This is not weakness, this is biology. But here is the danger. When you do not understand this mechanism, you spend your entire life in pursuit of things that were never going to save you. You build your identity around arriving somewhere. And when you arrive, you feel cheated. You feel like something must be wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. You are just never told the truth about how the mind actually works. Until you break this cycle at its root, the chase becomes the cage. What if the person you are trying to become is a character someone else invented for you? The most shocking truth about emptiness is this. Most people are not even chasing their own dreams. They are chasing a version of success that was installed in their mind by parents, culture, social media, and fear of judgment. From childhood, you absorbed a script. You were told, be successful, be liked, be admired, be secure. So you spent decades trying to perform that script, and when you got the applause meant nothing, because deep down you knew you were acting. This disconnection between the authentic self and the performed self is one of the deepest sources of inner emptiness that exists. You wake up tired not because you work too hard, but because you work too hard for something that was never yours. The tragedy is not failure. The tragedy is succeeding at the wrong thing and only discovering it when you have already paid with your years. Real fulfillment only becomes possible when you stop chasing someone else's definition of a worthy life and begin the terrifying, necessary work of finding your own. What if silence is the very thing you are most afraid of, and that fear is destroying you? Modern life is engineered to keep you running. Notifications, content, comparison, noise, and this is not accidental. When you are constantly stimulated, you never sit long enough to feel what is actually underneath, the grief, the uncertainty, the questions you have been avoiding. Distraction has become the most socially acceptable form of self-avoidance on the planet. People call it productivity. They call it hustle. But if you strip away the motion, what you often find is a person running from themselves. Ancient wisdom traditions understood something that modern psychology is only now beginning to confirm. You cannot find yourself through more doing. You can only find yourself through conscious stillness, not laziness, stillness. The practice of sitting with yourself without needing to fix, escape, or perform anything. Most people will never do this because the silence confronts them. with everything they have been running from. And that confrontation, as terrifying as it feels, is not the enemy. It is the beginning of the only freedom that actually lasts. What if the moment you get what you want, you are already wanting the next thing, and this loop has no natural end? This is one of the most devastating truths about human psychology. Desire does not rest. It evolves, it upgrades, it shapeshifts. The ancient teachers called it the hungry ghost, a creature with an enormous mouth and a stomach that can never be filled. You see this in every area of life. The person who needed 10,000 followers now cannot sleep unless they have 1,000,000. The person who wanted a small house now resents the neighbors with the bigger one. This is not greed, this is the unevolved mind operating in its default setting. What nobody tells you when you are young is that unchecked desire is not a path to satisfaction, it is a treadmill disguised as a road. The difference between people who feel fulfilled and those who remain empty is not that the fulfilled ones got more, it is that they learned to master the relationship between wanting and being. They stopped letting desire drive the vehicle. They stepped into the seat of awareness and began to choose consciously what to pursue, what to release, and what to already call enough. What if every time you seek approval from someone else, you are pouring water into a bucket that has no bottom? One of the core reasons people chase and remain empty is that they have outsourced their self-worth. They need external signals, likes, praise, recognition, love from others, to feel that they have value. And the catastrophic problem with this is simple: you cannot control it. When validation comes, it feels magnificent for a moment, and then it fades, and you need more. When it does not come, you collapse. You have made your emotional stability dependent on variables completely outside your control. This is not just emotionally exhausting, it is philosophically impossible to sustain. No human being can give you what you are actually looking for, because what you are looking for is a felt sense of your own completeness. And completeness is not something anyone can hand you. It must be found inside. This does not mean you stop caring about others or stop wanting to be loved. It means you stop needing their approval to believe that you are enough. The moment you stop leaking that power outward, something profound shifts. You become stable, not cold, stable. And from that stability, you finally stop running. What if the peace you have been chasing your entire life is not somewhere ahead of you, but has been buried underneath the chase itself? This is the most shocking note of all, because it challenges the very foundation of how most people live. The assumption driving the chase is, I will feel whole when I achieve this. But the people who find real peace, not the performance of peace, but genuine inner stillness, consistently report the same discovery. They were not missing something that needed to be added. They were covered by something that needed to be removed. Layers of conditioning, fear, identity, noise, all of it sitting on top of a natural state of clarity that was always present. Like the sun behind clouds, the clouds were never the sun's problem. They were simply in the way. This understanding does not make you passive. It makes you free. Because when you are no longer running from the feeling of incompleteness, you can finally act from a place of genuine choice, not desperation. Your work becomes meaningful. Your relationships become real. Your life becomes yours. What if the life you are running toward is the very thing keeping you from the life you actually need? You wake up before the alarm. You grind when others sleep. You sacrifice comfort, time, relationships. You do everything the world told you a serious person does. And sometimes you reach what you were chasing, the number in the bank, the title on the door, the body in the mirror. And for a brief, breathless moment, it feels right dot. And then quote dot dot. The silence comes back, the restlessness returns, and somewhere deep in your chest, a voice whispers something you are almost too afraid to hear. Is this all there is? That voice is not your enemy. That voice is the most honest thing about you. Most people silence it with the next goal. the next relationship, the next upgrade, the next distraction. They call it ambition. They call it drive. But there is a difference, a razor-thin, life-defining difference between a person who moves forward because they are called toward something and a person who moves forward because standing still is too terrifying to bear. That one is living, the other is fleeing. And from the outside, they look almost identical. That here is the first truth. They never put in any self-help book. Your brain is biologically designed to return you to emptiness. No matter what you achieve, no matter how high you climb, hedonic adaptation resets your emotional baseline. The mountain you scaled becomes the ground you stand on. And you find yourself looking up at a new summit, feeling no closer to peace than when you started. This is not failure, this is the default. But default was never destiny. That the second truth is even more disturbing. Most people are not chasing their own dreams, they are performing a role assembled from 1,000 invisible hands. Parents who wanted safety, teachers who wanted compliance, society that wanted productivity, feeds that sold aspiration. You absorbed this script before you were old enough to question it, and now you defend it as identity. You have spent years building a life that looks impressive to people whose opinions you were never actually sure you respected. And the cost of that performance is not just exhaustion, it is estrangement from yourself. That you cannot find yourself in the applause of an audience watching a character you invented to survive. That then there is the noise. The relentless, curated, beautiful, addictive noise of modern existence. Notifications constructed to spike your nervous system, comparisons engineered to make you feel behind, content designed to ensure you never sit still long enough to feel what is actually happening inside you. Because if you sit still, if you actually stop, what rises to the surface is not emptiness. What rises is the truth you have been running from, the grief you never finished, the question you never dared answer, the version of you that got buried under the performance, underneath all the striving, underneath all the magnificent, exhausting noise. Silence is the doorway. Desire, when it is not mastered, does not lead, it chases, it evolves, it upgrades. The moment the wanting is satisfied, the wanting renames itself and points you somewhere new. Ancient teachers had a name for this state of being, the hungry ghost, always consuming, never nourished, not because the food is wrong, but because there is a hole that food was never meant to fill. And until you understand the difference between desire as a guide and desire as a tyrant, you will spend your most precious years in service of a goal that always recedes. And then there is the approval, the quiet, devastating addiction to being seen, validated, recognized. You post the achievement, hoping someone will confirm it meant something. You need the acknowledgement to feel the reality of your own worth. But here is the catastrophe of that arrangement. You have handed the keys to your inner peace to a world that is too distracted, too self-absorbed, and too unstable to hold them safely. The world will not always applaud when you need it to. And on the days it does not, you collapse. You have built your foundation on the shifting ground of other people's attention. And no structure built on shifting ground can hold that your worth is not a thing to be voted on. That the deepest truth, the one most people spend their entire lives running past, is this: you were never incomplete. You were covered, layer after layer of conditioning, fear, performance, and noise, all of it sitting on top of something that was already whole.